Hi everyone, thank you for joining me on today's Knowledge Bites webinar. We have Archie Brown, who is the head instigator at Brattleboro Development Credit Corporation, and for our 21st session of this webinar, he's going to be talking about Instigate, which is a small business and entrepreneurial program offered by the Brattleboro Development Credit Corporation. Again, just a refresher, the goal of these webinar series is to provide high-level introduction to economic and workforce development programs, resources, tools. At the end, there will be information provided where you can get more in-depth assistance as well as contact information of the presenter. Just a little on the structure. It's a 20-minute presentation, and then there'll be 10 minutes at the end for question and answer. Since we've got a small group today, I'll keep everyone unmuted, so just keep that in mind, and we can have more of a conversation maybe throughout and questions at the end. So bear with me 1 second while I transfer the presentation capabilities to our...
While you do that, Sarah, is today a special day?
Yes.
This is RT, by the way. It is.
I turned 30 today, so awesome. I'm making it into the next decade.
And what does that mean we need to do?
Oh no!
Happy birthday to you! Happy birthday to you! Happy birthday to Sarah! Happy birthday to you! Okay, thanks for humoring me.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Okay, am I on yet?
You should. You should have gotten an ask.
I'm not seeing the screen as of yet. But...
Oh, you're saying okay, that's my fault. Yep. I am not responding.
Fault. You have there you go. All right. I can see it. James, can you see it?
I'm sorry, I just took a bite.
Sorry to catch you there.
No, that's okay. I saw something come up that said RT is presenting now.
Yep, you should see what is an entrepreneur.
My screen is still black.
Hey, I'm gonna have to hit pause for 1 moment.
I got mine figured out, and it's looking at it now.
Sarah, you can see it, Gary?
Yep, I can. Took me a minute, but it's working now.
So they have
James, what about you?
There.
No, it may be our firewall, so I'm not worried about it.
Okay, Archie has a soothing voice. So.
Sorry about that. So I'm sorry.
Go for it.
There's some logistics here that we were juggling. Okay, should I start?
Yep. James can't see your screen, but that's okay. So just maybe read what's on the screen.
Okay. Is that my fault or is it? Okay,
I think it's the hospitals.
Okay. So I start by asking the question, what is an entrepreneur? And since we're a small group, I'd love to hear some definitions if anyone is bold enough. Anybody? James? I think I saw Gary sign in.
Sure. Let's see. Entrepreneur, person or group of people that are have some ideas that they want to put into action, business-based.
Yep. Cool. Yeah.
I just heard a really great definition of an entrepreneur. It's someone who jumps off the top of a tall building because they're confident they can build an airplane on the way down.
I love it. Nice. So the next screen, if it's responding, the next screen, I asked Mr. Google and got the response, and the definition is the person who organizes and operates a business or businesses taking on greater than normal financial risks in order to do so. Synonyms, I like the synonyms: businessman, businesswoman, enterpriser, speculator, tycoon, magnate, mogul. I like that definition too, James. I also like something even simpler, which is, just a problem solver, somebody who happens to be working on a startup company and they solve problems. I think for as many people as you ask, you'll get a different definition. So I try not to focus too heavily on what that is.
So RT, just so that you're aware, I was able to log in through my other computer, which isn't through the hospital network, and I can see your slides now. So.
Awesome. Okay, great. Just real quickly, who, where, why, and how. And today, I should back up a little bit. So Sarah explained, gave me a brief introduction. I'm RT Brown. We started this program called Instigate actually just 2 years ago. We completed a feasibility study on a business, what we call the traditional business accelerator, and I won't go into a lot of details, but essentially the findings were in our region, in our rural region, a traditional business accelerator, as it's traditionally defined, where there's a cohort, maybe several cohorts a year, let's say 12 to 15 businesses going through. The accelerator takes some equity and then provides the businesses exposure to different funding opportunities, typically by the way of venture capital. We just don't have that kind of deal flow in our rural region, at least not yet. So we chose to focus on activity around early stage firm development, and I'll go a little bit deeper into that. And so therefore, this program Instigate, which is just a playful way to describe that activity, because we're trying to instigate some vibrancy in this domain, if you will. So that's the who's, the BDCC. The where is Windham County. The why, I've talked about it a little bit, but essentially it's been in the news a lot actually lately. Kauffman Foundation has done some good work on promoting some primary research that talks about how startups have really declined over the last essentially decade, and that is early stage firms, they're a big driver of the economy. So they're trying to put a lot of work into why that's happening and how that can be reversed. And I'll talk about how a little bit as we go through this. Because I kind of have an idea of who's here, I won't dwell too much on the vocabulary. I've already described an accelerator, at least in the way that in the context of a traditional accelerator. I will touch on a moment here an idea that I'm trying to develop, and it's not my idea. I was introduced to it about a year ago in Colorado. There's a firm or an organization out there, I think it's called the Colorado Enterprise Fund, and they just simply call it Business Acceleration Services. And I think that's an appropriate model to explore in a rural region, whereby you don't have cohorts, you really just have a rolling start, or you have a company that maybe can really benefit from some growth stage attention and resources. So you surround that firm with what I would call business acceleration services. So that's a model I'm fleshing out a bit and hoping to explore. An incubator is what we have here at the Brattleboro Development Credit Corporation. We have what I call the Cotton Mill campus. It's an old mill that's been converted to be the host of a number of firms, some of which are early stage firms, some of which are what we would call key tenants. So, due to the just logistical and real needs, capital needs of a large old building like that, we can't sustain every location within a building like the Cotton Mill to be at an incubated lease. But the idea is for promising companies, we essentially subsidize the lease so that it keeps the entrepreneurs' fixed costs low, and they say that's what's needed. An entrepreneur needs access to capital and low fixed costs. So that's one way we try to help with that. So this presentation, I cover some ideas related to why we started Instigate and just entrepreneurship in general, popular topics and models used today have been really made, into the public awareness due to a guy named Steve Blank and the Lean Startup. That's the book. And within that, he references something called the Business Model Canvas, which is a great tool to help really any early stage company do some analysis on their competitors, their key activities, their resources, their value proposition. And it helps them on their road to completing. I think it's a great tool for someone to use before they start a business plan. So that's my recommendation. And here's the canvas actually. It's a free Creative Commons tool that one can download or just write on a whiteboard and make that grid and then start working through it. And usually, if I'm doing a presentation like this face to face, I just hand out a bunch of copies of this tool. I think it's important to.
Is it on the screen now?
Oh yes. So it should be. Is anyone else seeing it?
No, just a black screen.
I'm not black anymore.
I can see it. You can see the canvas?
Yeah, I can see it. So
okay.
We've switched places.
Yeah.
Huh. Do you want me to pause or should I keep going?
I got it back. Okay.
Okay, cool.
My computer, it just timed out.
Yeah, so if you just Google this, you'll find a download of this, and like I said, you can print it out onto a big piece of paper, or a lot of times if I'm working with a company just to flesh some ideas out, I'll put it up on I'll just redo this onto a whiteboard, and then you can just use Post-it notes and start filling in these different sections.
RT, I noticed you guys branded that as it's not branded. It's part of your slide. Just says Brattleboro.
It's just a inserted image. Yeah.
Yeah. We use that same canvas almost exclusively at the Lightning Jar whenever we're talking with business people, with start entrepreneurs. It's like our go-to tool. If you can explain to me your business on a business model canvas, then you actually have a chance at us actually understanding and trying to help you.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. And Steve Blank and that Lean Startup, but I touch on this because it really has changed the vernacular around, startups, and so I try to hit this just because this is going to come up. If you start talking to people about your company and it's a startup, I think most people are using this as a tool. I like to touch on the business life cycle because what I'm going to get into next is really at the core of sort of the foundation of Instigate, which is, in my mind, it's around creativity and ideation. But of course, that's seen at an early startup phase. But then a business will go through growth, where they're going from point A to point B very quickly. Some businesses are very intentional about the way they grow, and especially in the Silicon Valley world, that's all they, the venture-backed company, that's all they want to hear and talk about is the growth stage firm. But eventually, a company is going to get into the mature phase, where it's just sort of humming along, and their revenues are solid and pretty consistent and growing year over year. But there will be a point where a firm will realize that either due to market competition or a change in market and demand, they're going to face decline, and it's at that point that they really have to reinvent themselves so that they don't continue to decline. And it's at that point where ideation really becomes important again, and you almost return to the exercises that folks do when they're starting a firm to try and be an intrapreneur, as they say. And we face a lot of companies that, they're completely content. They may be a lifestyle company. They are making their granola. They are able to support and make a good living. The two founders, let's say, maybe they have a couple of part-time employees. My concern for companies like that is that if you are not always thinking about growth, what are you doing? Anybody want to take a stab at that? If you are not growing, what are you doing?
Dying.
Yes, there we go. you are in decline. So I try to stress that as much as possible when it's appropriate. So Instigate, yeah.
Could you go back 2 slides to your business model growth?
Yeah.
I notice whenever I see this graph, they have time along the x-axis, but they never actually have time defined, like how long is startup, how long is growth, how long is maturity. And it's my understanding that, a decade ago or better, that life cycle was more in the range, or maybe 2 decades ago, it was more in the range of a 3 to 5 year cycle from startup to maturity, and then a couple years of maturity, et cetera.
Yeah.
Now, I think that one thing that's really valuable for startup entrepreneurs to realize is that same cycle is occurring, but it's actually probably likely less than a 2-year cycle, the entire thing.
That
if you come up with your idea and grow sufficiently and capture market and mature within 24 months, that you're actually at risk of someone else eating your lunch. And the same one, sure, I think that the decline versus reinvention demand occurs much more quickly.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with you. I just would wonder, is that based on industry segment? I could see in a sort of a high tech, high growth, app development field where that's for sure the case. But I wonder if in traditional manufacturing or medical devices, I'm wondering if it's that fast for across all industry segments.
I mean, certainly one of the slowest cycle lifetimes is in healthcare.
Uh-huh.
And we're feeling a cycle lifetime pressure like we've never felt before.
Oh, really?
I mean, it's certainly in the years instead of prior decades.
Yeah. No, I would agree. I mean, it's maybe Moore's law at play, right? Which don't ask me to recite. Okay, Instigate. So a system of creativity, entrepreneurism, and innovation. That's my definition. I've already touched on it a bit. So I typically go through a series of quotes here. I won't spend a lot of time on these, but these are sort of my way of articulating some of the founding principles related to Instigate. I like this quote because I never claim that I have an original idea, and most of my ideas have been borrowed from someone else or just outright taken. So I have no fear of perfection. You'll never reach it. I relate this to entrepreneurs in that oftentimes we see entrepreneurs that can't get out of their own way because they're constantly striving for perfection. In the book that I referenced earlier, The Lean Startup, there's a concept called the MVP, that's minimally viable product, and that's where and this doesn't have to be a tech-based product. I mean, this could be a granola, and the concept is really simply to get something out so that you can put it in front of a customer and start getting immediate feedback, so that you can take that feedback and then iterate and do it over and over and over again. If an entrepreneur can't understand that and they're constantly fixated on having something finished and perfect, then they won't be able to receive that feedback and mature their product. Will, I think, is a big component to an early stage firm. And this also relates to my comment about lifestyle companies, in that, you know, people have to have the will to grow their companies, and or the entrepreneurs have to have the will to keep pushing forward. A lot of times, I think we folks on this call and working in this field, we see people who are fascinated by their idea, but it doesn't get beyond that. They don't have the will to take it beyond that. And you can't have a round of quotes without having Dr. Seuss, right? And I love this. So one of the things that I do in the region are a series of idea jams, and it's to get at exactly this. It's to get ideas bouncing off of each other. And conflicting possibly. So an idea jam, which we're having one here in Brattleboro on June 20th, that's a shameless plug, is an event where it's kind of like a souped up chamber event. We gather people together and we ask folks if they'd like to share an idea about a new business. It doesn't have to be their own idea. It could be an idea their friend had, or an idea that somebody's given to them. And they have 1 minute. So it's a rapid fire, back-to-back sharing of ideas. If you have 20 of those, you know, you can imagine you have 20 ideas that are then floating around in the air. And after that, there's networking and people either connecting about those ideas or conflicting about those ideas. But that's exactly the point. You want that friction. You want that sort of generation of I don't know, I think they're like atoms bouncing around in the air. Yeah, doing. So that's, again, getting back to the point about getting out there and just trying to do things and not getting so wrapped up in one's head. To me, I really appreciate, you know, when you talk about creativity, it's hard not to talk about Steve Jobs. But one thing that he did that I think is very made a good impact on his organization. He had, at the same level, a C-suite level, so a chief executive officer, a chief financial officer, chief operating officer. He had a chief creative officer. So that sends a message throughout the organization that creativity is just as important as those other very important functions. And I think that's really neat, and I think it's evident in the way in which Apple has been able to create innovative products for such a long time. So some recommended readings. These are books, for the most part, that I've read that I've really enjoyed and has informed my thinking relative to Instigate. Some of them aren't necessarily related to businesses, but more about creativity and ideation. So this is a great book, Steve Johnson, Where Good Ideas Come From. I loved this book, Adam Grant's The Originals, The Idea Factory. And I'm happy to share these slides with anybody. I think this gentleman is at MIT, and he's a professor at MIT, but this is a good book as well. And Steve Blank also co-authored this book. Steve Blank is the author of The Lean Startup. And this is a picture. This is just totally not related to anything. Sometimes you just got to break it up, right? No? Okay, all right.
Is that what you're putting in your kitchen?
Yes, well, not the kitchen, but the bathroom. That is correct. It's going to be something like that. Anyway, so last Monday, I kept this in here because I just wanted to touch on it. We had something that I called the MPPP, the Mini Pitch Party. And it was, to me, it was sort of in between an idea jam and a formal pitch competition. So in August, the road pitch competition, which I know will hit Bennington and then come over here to Windham County, You know, that's a formal 7-minute presentation. It's, to me, sort of Shark Tank-esque. You're in front of a group of business sponsors and investors, or at least I think, and they will hear a presentation and then ask 8 minutes worth of questions. And so it's a traditional pitch competition. The mini pitch party was just, we had 7 people that pitched an idea for 3 minutes. We didn't allow any technology, so it was just people sharing their business pitch. And a lot of this, to me, is giving people a goal to work toward. It's the same with an idea jam. You know, it gives someone a date. They've been chewing on their idea. They need to get out in front of people. They need to get the words coming out of their mouth. So events like idea jams and mini pitch parties give people that goal. So it was a fun event. I'd never done one before, and I was really happy with the results and the participation. I am going to switch to my browser. I hope you folks can see that. But on the BDCC's website, there's some blocks on the homepage that link to these event listings. But part of Instigate to me is also small business and just trying to provide resources to help small businesses operate. So I try to hit, you know, different functional areas of the business, whether it's finance, marketing, strategy. And here are just some examples of some of the offerings that we have coming up. So up in Bellows Falls, we have a series of digital marketing workshops. It starts tomorrow. On Thursday, Jeff Lewis and I will be doing a SWOT analysis workshop for businesses. And that can be for an early stage firm, but it also could be for a mature firm trying to figure out their next steps. This is the next week's digital marketing, so an email. And then we have a neat series of workshops put together by a local organization called Thrive EAP on leadership and management. And this is just one example of the leadership and management workshop, the understanding harassment and discrimination. We also do a series of small business resource workshops. The next one's in Londonderry. It brings together the Vermont Small Business Development Center, the BDCC, and you know, I'll arrange somebody from the Vermont Employee Owners Center to talk about succession planning, an attorney, and an accountant to do a 2-hour workshop where we cover sort of all the different stages of a business and what are the resources in the region that can help somebody at any stage. The key here is to provide just a little bit of information, but it's really for businesses in a very specific area to be able to walk away with a business card of somebody that might be able to help answer some questions. So we did one in Wilmington, and we're going to do one in Londonderry. Gary, I'd love to do one in Bells Falls.
Yep.
So it's been a good resource. Let's see. I'm sure I've probably gone over, so my apologies.
All good.
This is my contact information. You know, I'd love to chat with anyone offline if you're curious to chat further and talk shop, or send me an email. But thanks so much, and I guess we can chat a little bit, right?
Yeah, if there's any questions or comments or anything, we definitely have time for
that.
Yeah,
RT, I had a question. I like your concept of the MPPP.
Yeah.
So just flesh that out a little bit more, because I'm wondering whether or not that's something we shouldn't try here at the Lightning Jar. You did it, you said, without tech.
Yeah.
So was there, did people pre-register to be one of the pitchers, or you kind of, once everybody got in the room, you said who wants to go first and left it kind of organic?
So it was a free event. I did have a registration. To be honest, several of the participants were folks that I knew were, I referenced that people needing a goal. So some of it was curated by my part, calling them and saying, I think you should do this, because I know they need that encouragement. Some folks, there were two presentations that they just showed up, they didn't register, and I didn't know they were coming. So because there's no tech, because we did it at Duo's Lounge, which is sort of it's a area of Duo restaurant that can be sort of organized into an event, but it still has a public feel to it. So it would be it's somewhat informal, and not, my goal is I actually put in the description of the event, this is not a Shark Tank like environment. It's truly meant to be supportive. We did allow 3 to 5 minutes of questions afterwards, so they were getting some experience in having to field questions. I was really happy with it. So if you're thinking about something like that, I'd be happy to talk a little bit more about it. There was no magic formula at all. There's nothing, it was really just a 3-minute presentation followed by 3 to 5 minutes of questions, no tech. So it was just, I decided to order as once I knew who was in the room.
Yep, great. And then a kind of a follow-up question from that same slide about the road pitch. Obviously, we're hosting the road pitch. You guys are hosting the road pitch, which is fantastic here for Southern Vermont. Are you curating or screening your pitchers for the road pitch?
Yeah. Well, it's funny you asked that.
Have you your kind of process along that lines as well?
Yeah. So the subtext, what's another word for sub? Anyway, the other motivation for the mini pitch party was to try to find some folks who might be good candidates for the road pitch competition. So Jim, the mini pitch party was a collaborative event between myself and Jim Brzezino of Wyndham Grows, the food hatchery or accelerator out of Strolling of the Heifers. And we've done this now, as I know you folks have, for the last couple of years, and we've learned that it's one thing to get an application that somebody has submitted online, and it looks really good, and it's another to get that entrepreneur in the room and seeing how they can take feedback, seeing how they are on their feet, seeing how they can deliver their presentation. So we used the mini pitch party as a way to turn that on its head to see if we could get some folks, going at it from another direction. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Yeah. So we're also in the process of trying to get our list of 5 entrepreneurs for the road pitch. We have an event coming up May 23rd, a kind of first round of pitches. We're going to have 2 of these. We're going to have one in May 23rd, another one in June, and then the road pitch is the end of July. So this first run, it looks like we're going to have about a dozen pitchers, which is,
that's awesome.
Is more than what we've had in the past. So we're pretty excited about it.
Yeah. How do you get your word out about your events? How?
Boy, it's painful, RT. It's painful.
Okay. All right. I mean, I'm sorry to hear that, but at the same time, I'm like, okay, good. It's not just me.
Yeah. No. And I tell you, pulling these people out of the woodwork is
pulling them out of the woodwork.
Oh, I'm dragging and kicking and screaming. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
It's amazing to me how many entrepreneurs think they're going to get filthy rich sitting in their basement.
Well, that's what it's a lot of actually the development of the idea jam, which was not my stole it from a guy from UMass, a professor at UMass, who does these. People are afraid of sharing their idea because they think someone's going to take it, and that is just foolishness. You have to be comfortable sharing your idea, otherwise it's not going to go anywhere. The most successful startups are the result of a collaboration. So, that person who's sitting in their basement working on their idea all by themselves is most likely not going to succeed or get anywhere. Anyway, that's a strong opinion, but
yeah, I agree. I'm not quite sure how to change the perspective across the community. So if you guys, it's something we should probably work together on in terms of messaging. But it'd be wonderful if somehow we promoted your event, like your mini pitch party. If there was some way where we knew about it. I'm just trying to think of how to kind of raise the intellect and the understanding across southern Vermont.
Well, so this, we're probably getting to a little more into the weeds than Sarah wants, but I spent the day with, you might have met her last year at the Economic Development Summit, Marianne Christensen of the Hamlet Rhyme Center for Entrepreneurship based in Keene. And she and I really think it would be valuable for us folks working in this field to get together maybe like quarterly. So Gary, you, the Lightning Jar folks, James, us here, and maybe even a Franklin County, Massachusetts group that, so just so that we can, start building our knowledge capacity and knowledge network. I think it's a great idea.
That would be helpful for me. I'd show up.
Yeah, it would get Lightning Jar folks for sure.
Okay, all right. Well, maybe we need to take some formal steps down that road.
Awesome.
Hey, RT, the easiest way to do that is if and I hate to push it off on you, but if you were to just take the lead and just say, hey, look, convening of the group of entrepreneurial co-working space leaders, send out a meeting announcement. I think you'd get people to go.
Okay, well, I'm going back to the Ray Bradbury quote. You simply must do things. So I will do that, James.
It's true. Gary, did you have anything?
Yeah, I had a quick question. You probably covered it, but I don't quite follow the difference between accelerator and incubator.
Okay, so I'll give you my take on it, and James, jump in too. So, and to me, an accelerator, okay, a traditional accelerator, things like Y Combinator or Techstars, those are the big well-known ones. Or in the Springfield area, Valley Venture Mentors, an accelerator will take a cohort of companies that typically are growth stage companies, so they've already started, they already have a certain amount of revenues, and they surround them with resources as a cohort to help them get from point A to point B, whatever that is. If it's revenue growth, it's typically revenue growth, so that at the end of a period, maybe a 4-month period, they're able to make a very solid presentation to venture capitalists so that they can receive a round of equity investment. An incubator is simply a way, a facility that provides low-cost rent or lease to an early-stage firm. So an incubator could have some accelerator services surrounding, they could put it into a program, if you will. But to me, an incubator is really, trying to provide the entrepreneur with low overhead so that they can put the money back into their business to grow it.
Gotcha.
Those are my definitions. I mean, there could be others.
Yeah, no, that's helpful. It's pretty clear. Thanks.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, let's wrap this up because I'm hungry.
Okay.
I haven't had my lunch yet.
You gotta bring your brown bag thing there.
Well, I know. I didn't plan well, even though I planned the whole thing.
Well, I ate while I presented, so I'm just kidding.
Just a few things coming up. James, I know you're already registered. Gary, I don't know if you're registered yet, but the Southern Vermont Economic Development Summit, which will be on May 30th at Mount Snow.
I think I registered, yeah.
Okay, perfect. So I don't need to tell you guys. And our next Knowledge Bite, so we're not going to, this is our last Knowledge Bite.
But what about the May 29th piece?
TBD.
Is that
TBD.
Okay.
More to come on that, if anything.
Okay.
So no more Knowledge Bites up to the summit, and then our first Knowledge Bite after the summit will be with Ed Williams, who is with the Vermont Procurement Technical Assistance Center, and he will be discussing the Small Business Innovative Research Program. You know, what the program is, are you qualified, and how do you apply. So it should be pretty useful because that stuff is hard to sift through, and he does a pretty good job of you know, dumbing it down for people to understand. I think that is it. Yep, always open to suggestions for other webinar topics. Here's my contact information, and thank you, RT, for
thank
the
you for
lively
having
discussion.
me. Yep, I enjoyed it. Thank you.
Wonderful. All right, everyone, enjoy this beautiful weather.
You bet. Till next time.
Being 30.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, RT.
Yep,
Bye-bye.
thank you.
Bye, Gary.
Bye.